Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Grow Your Path to Wellness. If you missed it, last episode, Kelsi and I did this impromptu recording we do every once in a while when we have a guest that needs to reschedule. And we talked all about a holistic approach to staying well, so preventative wellness. Kelsi happened to be sick at the time, and we just thought it was so timely to talk about how addressing things like your mental health can impact your ability to, have a stronger immune system. So make sure you go back and listen to that. This week, I'm super excited. We're welcoming another one of our fabulous TikTok friends. Christina is coming to join us and talk about teens and mental health. Thank you for being here, Christina.
And thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
All right. So, Christina, tell us all about you, what you do, your background, anything you want to share with the work you do, and then why is this topic about teens and mental health so important to you?
So I am a licensed professional counselor. So as you know, every state has their own title for licensed therapist. And I work in private practice now, and I'm in the state of New Jersey, the state that nobody ever really wants to go to. But you don't want to be here either, but we're stuck. So
it's the same in Ohio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm in the state of New Jersey. I work in private practice. I've been in my private practice for 4 years, a little over 4 years. I started late in the field because I did the whole I don't know what I want to be when I grow up in my 20s type of thing. And I prayed that going to grad school for something like counseling might pan out because nothing else did. So I did it, and it was the puzzle pieces connected immediately. And I worked in substance abuse. So I worked in rehab for I'd say about 8 years before I went into private practice. So I worked in 2 different rehabs for long periods of time. And then I had a little blip in the middle where I worked in an intensive outpatient program, post-crisis step down type of thing. But I missed working in that residential chaos setting. That's the ADHD in me. But I really liked that. And then I did long-term residential in a men's program at the place that I worked at. So I started that with the supervisor. So, and then it was the time to go to private practice. It was that you have to make that step at some point. I always knew that's what I wanted to do. I didn't want to necessarily just specialize in addiction. I wanted to really branch out because it's never about the drugs and the alcohol. It's all the other stuff. And I really wanted to branch out and expand my skills and stuff like that. So that's it. That's how I ended up where I'm at right now.
I love that you said, I love everything you said, but I don't know. It's so interesting to me that we still differentiate substance use treatment and mental health treatment. I'm like, it's all just the symptom, okay. Anyways.
Oh, because people just tangent real quick, because when you're at that level of care, everyone's like, oh, it's just triage and you're, just stabilize. No, it's not, because there's so much underneath it. And I was always the kind of therapist that would sit there with them and dig. I would open up, but I wouldn't necessarily, I could close it very gently.
Yeah.
But a lot of the clinicians in that environment were afraid of that. They need that.
Yeah.
Let them. They're But
anyway,
anyway,
the safety and connection.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So the long story short, when I went into private practice, I really wanted to work with teenagers and adults. So I take people from 14, give or take, sometimes 13, depending on the situation, to however old. So I don't discriminate that. But I love working with teenagers. I was really excited to talk about this topic. They have my heart, and I love everyone's always how do you do that? I'm I worked in rehab with 18 to 25-year-old young people. That was the community I worked in. I was it's so raw and real.
Mm-hmm.
It's so great, but it's not for everybody. But
and this is not a negative toward that population at all, but when you have significant trauma and stress and, unhelpful coping that early on in life, while your brain is also still developing until you're 25 years old, some of those age ranges have teenage-like behaviors and personalities, right? So I'm sure it's very transferable skills.
I often say it was I was working with, 13 to 18-year-olds, because when you think about it, that if they started using the age of onset at like 14, you almost become stunted at that age.
Mhm.
So they're very much, and you're dealing with all the it's like, imagine dealing with just the trauma being a teenager alone,
Yeah.
and then adding in that extra layer. It's heartbreaking because there's so much in there that hasn't been touched.
Yeah. This is what comes to mind for me. I don't know where I heard it, but it really stuck with me the past few years, is like, don't ever tell a kid now, or a teen, or whatever, a minor, oh, like, I know what it was like to be your age, because I mean, the world we live in now compared to when you grew up, when I know we have like a little bit of an age gap, but like, just a little bit.
I take that as a major compliment. Yes.
Yeah, yeah,
A
a little
little
bit.
bit, maybe about, a decade, but it's fine.
Just a little bit. We still have similar mindsets and approaches, I think, because like I'm technically a millennial, but I was raised more in that. Why can't I think right now? Gen X, is that, no, not, what is the one? What are you?
I'm like on the cusp of Gen X millennial.
Yeah. So I was raised with like that Gen X, or like above, like work mentality and maturity and that kind of stuff. So anyways, tangent, right? How do we, can you kind of speak to that, like the teens that we're working with now and the issues that they're going through after we've just gone through, and we're still kind of in this COVID pandemic? How does it look now, and why might it not be the most helpful thing for you to say to your child, or a child in your life? Oh, I know what it was like to be when I was your age.
Because it's not the same. So, and that's the thing. And it's interesting too, because I age myself, I'm 42. So my clients, my teen clients, like, I am more towards their parents' age. So like, I understand why their parents are saying what they're saying, because I know how I grew up, but I also know why it's different in these times in general. And two, it's like, that's never helpful. Even it was not helpful for me either. So, when the 90s, when I was a teenager, and it was such a time, like the 90s was just like, I mean, now it's what, vintage now. People like, that's like the dress up, like, let's dress up as a 90s party. It makes me want to cry. But yes, we didn't talk about mental health. We didn't talk about going to therapy. And I think back to my own experiences as a teenager, and it was horrific. And I went through the friends ditching you, and then you don't have anyone to sit with at lunch. And like, that's some serious trauma that like really resonated with me all the way up through adulthood, that I obviously worked out in my own therapy. But that really stays with you in this way, because you're so vulnerable at that age. Well, I didn't have the so amazement. I did not have the internet until I was one of the few that had like the dial-up modem when I was maybe a junior or a senior in high school. So like, I didn't have the internet. There was no social media. And even in my college years, like, we had like AIM or like AOL, but like, there was no social media. And even the internet in and of itself had such limited access. Like, it wasn't as accessible as it is now. These kids see everything, and no matter how many parental controls you put, how many monitoring you do, I'm going to scare you because you have a child, but
Oh, I know.
right, there's always that one friend whose parents don't care and they see everything. Because if I think about it, we did it too, right? Like, we just did it in different ways. Like, we would buy like, smut books and like
We found the workaround,
Yeah.
We figured it out.
But now it's like so accessible. And not only is it accessible in big adult topics for them, it's accessible in like the world today. So they have access to seeing things that are going on all across the country. And it's a lot of information for me as an adult. I can only imagine these young kids with their little worlds are so tiny. And it's just so different. And then you throw the pandemic in. And it was a first for everybody. So to have that, to take them out of their social circles, put them in the angstiest time in their life, when all that matters is your social circle. And then they're home, they're stuck home with their families. They're literally just FaceTiming with people. They're not in school like they normally are. They're not having that social interaction, the peer interaction. And then, you know, and I'm just speaking of like client stories, because the amount of teens that I started seeing during 2020, and now like they're all like seniors in high school. My babies are growing up, but they're watching their friends on social media. This one's talking to this one like didn't like my story, this one is messaging this one, and they're seeing things and they're not included. And then they're sitting there on social media and then they're scrolling, and then the body image issues because of what they see on TikTok and all those things. And that's all, they have too much access. It's like information overload. And they don't have an outlet. They didn't have social outlets for years. Even school wasn't normal until last year. So if you take a 14-year-old and you think about like your mindset, 14 years old going to like 18 years, the difference in what you think and how you see the world is so different. And like these are formative years that they were spending in their rooms on social media. So that's like a whole thing. So it's not helpful to say when I was a teenager, because I didn't have access. Like even in grad school, we talked a lot about, that's when cyberbullying became like a thing. And my bullying stayed at school. These kids are going home and this one's talking about this one, they're starting pages, this one snapped this one screenshotted and has a group chat talking about, it is evil. It is evil, and it's terrifying for them. They're kids at the end of the day. Their worlds are this tiny.
There's so much I want to say to that. And this is why I knew I'd love having you on, because we can just go be on our soapboxes together and just go preach to the world with our megaphones. But I'm thinking of so many things. So like, yes, we didn't have access to this. And then when we did, so I was in 8th grade when 9/11 happened. We were on a field trip and we just got there and they were like, all right, we got to go back. And there was all these like rumors, you know, like there's a bomb, or like nobody knows what's happening. It's scary, right? Because it's unknown. And then we get back to school and they're showing it on TV. And then I get home and they're showing that on TV. That was very traumatic for many in our generation, right? Like that was scary. Just like you said, our world is so small, and that one event was terrifying and changed how we view the world, right?
Chills just even talking about 9/11 gives me
chills.
Chills.
Right. And then you think they don't have the skills. They don't have the emotional regulation, coping skills to manage all this stuff. And it's 9/11 type stress on the body, because I'm a nerd about the mind-body connection, what stress does to your body and your physical health.
Yeah.
And then we wonder why they're not sleeping at night and they're on their phones all the time and they're vaping and they're, right? Like, of course, they don't have anywhere else to put this major trauma they're getting all day, every day. And no one is filling their cup for them. And then we put them in, okay, here, I'm going off on a tangent. Then we put them in school. I like it. It's not a tangent. It's all connected, right? A whole holistic approach. Then we put them in the education system and we're like, hey, you've probably seen me talk about this on TikTok. Like, hello, let's talk to this frontal lobe and executive functioning for 8 hours a day. And their trauma response, their adaptation response, their survival response is just firing. And this is like, bye-bye. It's not even there. I'm sorry for the people just listening to audio. I'm pointing to my frontal lobe. Like, your frontal lobe is not plugged in when your survival brain.
We were on audio. I'm like, yes.
Like, your frontal lobe is unplugged when your survival is on. It doesn't, there's no memory storage, there's no focus, there's no concentration, there's no, like, you know, all the things that schools are trying to teach. And then when they have behaviors, then they get behavioral interventions and the school to prison pipeline and all the things, right?
I have a whole thing in my drafts about schools with this, because that could be a whole nother topic, because I don't think that the school systems are doing enough. I could speak to the bubble in New Jersey that I live in, but I don't see what I should be seeing as far as taking care of these kids. And we both know that mental health care system is broken, like it's inaccessible. But to even go back to, in terms of my generation raising this generation of kids, like I think it's very daunting when, like, you could say, like, so when I was in high school, you weren't alive yet, but you either went two ways. My generation, you decided you needed therapy and you needed to take care of yourself, or you went with the generation above you that said, you got this, you can figure it out, suck it up, deal with it. So the problem is, and I'm not saying the parents are bad, it's just they've been literally conditioned. My generation was literally conditioned to have emotional unavailability. And I sucked it up and I couldn't talk about my feelings. And when their kids now are so open, because now they're seeing all these things on TikTok, I'm setting boundaries, mom, and this is my house. Like, okay, it's clashing because they don't know any better. And I could definitely speak that of my generation. And I don't fault like my parents. Well, I was raised well, but still there was this level of nobody went to therapy.
Mhm.
And if you did, it was you're going to the shrink
There's
and
something wrong.
you're crazy, there's
Mhm.
something wrong. And these kids don't have that mentality, but their parents are like trying to find a balance in what they were taught, what we were taught, as opposed to what's going on right now. And
Mhm.
I have to say that the parents of my kids, or my kids, my clients, I call them my kids. They're all very supportive in so many different ways. So it's really nice to see they give them a lot of autonomy in their own therapy.
Mhm.
But I know it's not always like that. I think I'm like kind of lucky, but it's
I was
just
gonna say, is there something you do in the beginning as far as like how you talk about, what therapy looks like and that relationship and what's told and not told that you think that helps with, I'm sorry, I know this is a little bit of a tangent, but I think that's a good point because I'll be honest, one of the reasons I don't really work with kids, I'm like 16 and up, is because I can't get, I have a lot of really great parents at that point that are like, yes, absolutely. But it unfortunately in younger ages specifically, it always felt like it was like, here, fix my kid. And they weren't open to what part they needed to play in that education and change process.
I can't say that hasn't come up because it has.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yes, it absolutely has. And that's frustrating, right? Because it takes two to really work on building that relationship. And I explain, so typically typically with teenagers, the parents will call me first. And I would, and I would say, I would explain who I am, what I do. I'm very, very thorough because I always want to make sure that the parent knows that like this is my approach to things. If you don't like it, that's fine. But
Mhm.
I offer, do you want to bring your teen on to a Zoom session? We'll do like a 10-minute, I can meet them. They could see if they like me. They can see if they're comfortable first. If they feel more comfortable just coming in for a meet and greet, we'll do that too, like
Mhm.
whatever, however they're more comfortable. And I explain to the parents, I say, listen, they have to sign a release of information if I can talk to you. I said, but here's the thing. If I could talk to you, they're going to think I'm going to tell you everything, and I'm not going to do that. And I need to have their trust. Now, I always have a hard limit. I explain this to the kid too, as well as to the parent. If I feel obviously your safety is in jeopardy or I am concerned, I will have to say something, but I talk to my teens first. I say, I offer them to be in the session with mom, to be on the phone, to be there so they can hear it. I don't want them to think I'm going behind their back in any
Mhm.
way. Their trust is so important to me. And I don't have any, because I'm so transparent about it, I don't have any issues with it.
I
So
love
I've
that.
done sessions with the parent and the teen, just to chat about things, or I know what not to talk about. I'll say, what don't you want me to say? This is what I want to say. What don't you want me to say? Don't talk about X, Y, and Z. I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to go tell your mom that you went to a party and you drank. Like, I'm not going to do that
Yeah.
because teens do that, right?
Now, if you're doing that like every night, that is maybe something we're going to
Different.
talk to your mom about. Yeah.
Exactly. If it's a habitual pattern that I'm seeing, maybe you're self-medicating, that's a problem. But if
Right.
it's like I'm a teenager and I go to a party on a Saturday night because that's what teens do, okay. You know,
Yeah.
just, they'd rather not, they don't even think they want to talk to me about it because I like look at them and I'm like, okay, let's talk about responsibility. Let's talk about what you do. That driver's license, that's a privilege. Never do that, so, and they're like, yeah, we know. And they're so good. I can't.
Kids are so good at reading through BS too. Like they know when you're genuine. And what we know, right, is like just like you said, you have to build that connection, that authentic trust and relationship before you get anywhere therapeutically. So that, and I also love that what you said, you're giving them full informed consent to make an informed decision
Mhm.
about what they want to do at the beginning. And that is something that definitely needs talked about more in our field,
Mhm.
in general, but obviously on this topic too. So thank you for bringing that up. And I think that there's many people in the world that don't realize I don't know. I just think about how many times I've gone to a medical provider of any kind.
Mhm.
There was zero informed consent before they were like sticking a needle in my arm or doing, they're like, sign the paper, but no one talked to me about it before I went into surgery or whatever the thing is, right? So I don't know. I think that's so important for people to realize, like, you really should and have access, you should have, and you have a right to access on and understand what you're getting yourself into when you get in a relationship with any kind of healthcare provider.
Absolutely. And it's also important to let them know too, like, I am not here, and this is what a lot of parents sometimes it could be a huge challenge. I'm not trying to turn your kid against you. Like, I can't ever tell someone, don't talk to your parent. Like, that's your choice. However, what I can provide for them is a space where they can learn assertive communication, where calling your mom, a, a slur isn't gonna, or cursing at them isn't gonna make them hear you. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's they're not going to hear your point. Your voice is important. How can we present your voice so you feel like you're being heard, right? So I'll teach them more assertive communication. Talk about owning your feelings as opposed to blaming, because they're going to get immediately defensive. And I talk about how that's just that works in confidence building. Like,
Yeah.
imagine how much more confident you feel about yourself when, like, you're assertive. Like, it's so
Yeah.
exciting. So
Yeah. I love
I
like that empowerment approach. Like, it
yeah.
goes and it takes it from like them feeling like they have an external, like it's an external locus of control, to internal,
Mhm.
right? Because now they feel empowered, like you said, and then they're going to build confidence.
Mhm. And helping the parents understand, like, I can tap into what it was like to me to be a teenager, for me to be a teenager, because of what I do, right? But, like, their worlds are so small. Like, when I tell you, when they're in my office crying about how they didn't have anywhere to sit for lunch because their friends weren't talking to them, that is a really big deal. Like, and I know, all right, you're going to move on, go to college. You're not even going to talk to these people anymore. Like, who cares? But in that moment, you can't see beyond that. That's
Yeah.
all you have. And I try to explain to them, because I'll make comments like, I don't like your friends. Like, they're not nice to you.
Yeah.
But, like, they don't have much of a choice, because they're forced to be with these people. They don't have the autonomy to be like, I'm not sitting next to you, or I'm not going to call you. I'm not going to see you. Because they're there all
And they don't
day.
have a reference point or like wisdom to, or like
Right.
uh perception. What is the word? Like they have no, that's all they know. It's like
Like a
it's like a
scope.
breeding ground. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like yeah, but then when they get out of there, it's like you see them blossom, but it's like you just wish you could implant that wisdom into their brain, but you can't. So this is so important. I just wanted to say, like, can you talk
Yeah.
about, like, I'm thinking like Erickson. I don't think a lot of parents or just people in the world, educators, people understand like normal developmental stages, like research proven what happens in
Right.
this adolescence. Can you kind of talk to that? Because people are like, why are you so obsessed with your friends and what they're doing? And why do you care about social media? Like, can you kind of talk to the psychology behind that?
I'm gonna do my best, because this clinical psychology terms and stuff like that is not my
Yeah,
strength.
not like from a
Ever.
research article, but like why,
Right.
what that stage of development is and why that's important to them.
They're in this stage where they're not their hormones are raging, and maybe because I'm in a stage of my life where my hormones are now raging again, but, like, maybe it's reminding me of that. But, like, their hormones are raging, their like scope of switches from their family to now their peers. They have all of this access to things that they see online. It's very, very different. And they just want to fit in at the end of the day. And they don't have the ability to see past their little tiny world. And I don't mean tiny in like a minimizing way, but their world is small. It's the town they grew up in that school. They don't realize that when they go to college, they're going to meet people from all places. Then they're going to be with more like-minded people, and their brains are just focused. On top of it, they're experiencing emotions they've never experienced before. You When you're 8 years old, like, hormones, like, you don't think about it, and now all of a sudden they're having these crazy hormonal things, and they don't have the skill set to be like, what is this? So they just act on it. Like, they don't
Yeah.
have that skill yet. And that's when, like, you'll get like the angstiness, or oh, my teenager sits in a room and they slams the door. Yes, because they don't want to deal with you, because they don't know what there's going on within themselves. They're like, they're like, what is this? I just want to be alone. They're trying to navigate it,
Who am
So,
I? What's my identity? And how does it, I
exactly.
explain to parents and kids too, like when I normalize it for them, like this is a very normal stage because you're looking at your family and where you came from. And you're like, huh, do I like that? Does that fit? And then you're looking at your peers.
Yep.
And you're like, huh, do I like that? Does that fit? I don't really know. And then when there's conflict between the two, you're like, wait a minute, hold on, let me try out some of these things to see if I really want to do that, right? So yeah, it's like a constant hypothesis and like testing of like what makes sense for them. Oh my gosh, we could literally make a series about this,
I
but
could probably like, I'm thinking I'm like, I could keep going, because then it's like then we could get into like the parents, my generation, seeing this and being like, well, I sucked it up and dealt with it, so you do it. And then they're like, but I saw on TikTok that I don't have to do that and I could do X, Y, and Z. And like that, see, they have access. And my generation is like, no, we only know one way.
maybe that's
So.
a good point to wrap up on. Do you have any like tips? Because I know people of all kinds that listen to this. I know you have minors that follow your TikTok and things like that. Like, and maybe you can share this as a clip. But what would you say to like parents or caretakers or caregivers of teens about how to kind of help them navigate that process? And maybe it's like twofold. Like if the caregiver sees that maybe their teen might need some mental health support, but they don't know how to say like, let's take you to therapy. Or maybe even from the teen side, like they're like, mom, I need therapy, but their mom is maybe more like the older generation that's like, I just suck it up type thing. Like, can you kind of speak to that, how we can help them navigate?
First of all, validate them. Don't question their feelings. Don't tell them about their feelings. Just say, okay, you're upset. It's okay. You're allowed to be upset. Sometimes that's all they need to hear is that, okay, I can feel this, right? That just validate them, let them know that their feelings matter, that even though you think in your mind, this is not that big of a deal, because it's not, because we're adults and we've already lived life and had bigger problems, right? So like, yes, do I think my high school drama is that big of a deal now, considering what I've been through since then? No, but they haven't been there yet.
Yeah.
From their perspective, meet them there and think, okay, if they're saying this is a big deal to them, it's a big deal to them. So just say, I understand. Maybe say, what do you need? Right? It doesn't give them an excuse to, of course, be rude or aggressive towards you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then if they want to go to therapy, then say that you could work on this with your therapist, and like that's the best. Teens need that. They need an outlet, especially like an adult outlet that can kind of like be neutral and isn't mom like or dad that's going to be like tell them that, because they're not going to listen to their parents.
Mm-hmm.
I did not
Nope,
want
sure
to.
didn't. Nope.
My mom could tell me the same thing as the stranger would tell me, and I would listen to the stranger because it's just what you do. So I would say definitely just validate them, let them have their space. Don't police them. Don't let them have their privacy. They have to make mistakes. Obviously, with the exception, we want to keep the kids safe. Like we
Right.
want to make sure they're safe, but like we can't let them think that like we're all in their business either. They do need privacy. Like it breaks my heart when I see like parents taking like the door off the teens' room. Like, why are you doing that to them? Like, let them have their moment. Let them
Mm-hmm.
scream it out in their room.
Right.
Like it's not personal.
Yeah.
So I could probably keep going on and on and on about that because it's so specific. It would be so specific to the teen, but validate them.
Yeah, validate them for
Hey,
sure. And then maybe ask them, like you said, like, how can I help? Or is there anything I'm doing that's contributing to this? Is there anything I can change?
right.
Do you, and then maybe when they get, when they're taking them, do you want me to go with you to the first appointment? Do you want me to go in? Do you want me to sit in the lobby? Like, do you want my support in this?
Absolutely. Yeah. Do you want me to talk to you? Do you not want me to talk to your therapist? And I'm pretty lucky. Some of my teens' parents are very much like, no, we want them to be honest with you. They need this because they don't know what to do either. Like they want them to have that outlet. So it's a
Yeah.
good thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Christina, I'm so glad. Both of us were like, yay, because we've met each other on TikTok. We haven't had a chance to actually like talk to each other. So I'm so glad. You're obviously welcome back because we have plenty to talk about.
Oh
So
yeah.
please come back. And Kelsi, Kelsi missed you today. Kelsi, we love you.
Kelsi, I really miss you. Amanda signed on and I was like, where's Kelsi? But you deserve, do you, boo? You're good.
Yeah, so we'll have Christina back when Kelsi is not, just traveling and bopping around the world all the time. But thank you for being here. Is there any like quote, mantra, parting words that you want to leave our community with before we wrap up here? And then where can they find you on social, your website, anything like that?
Yes, it was a pleasure to be here with you. This was great. We could probably keep going. And because this we're clearly both so passionate about we want to talk. But my TikTok is at Christina_LPC. My Instagram is at Christina_LPC108. I don't post on Instagram much. I can't keep up both. I could barely keep up my TikTok at this point.
Yeah.
My platform is a lot of humor. I just do a lot of entertainment, some education. I'm really just normalizing like being in therapy and like therapists as humans, because I'm a hot mess and I have a therapist. So why not talk about that too? And I guess one parting word that I would like to tell people is be gentle with yourselves, like be kind to yourselves, take care of yourselves, and every feeling that you have is always valid and nobody can take that from you. You learn how to manage it and learn how to treat yourself with compassion. And
I
that
got
goes
like a little warm hug in my heart when you said that. So thank you. I think I needed to hear that. I preach it a lot, so it was good to hear. Like, I don't know. Thank you for the vibe. Is if there's parents or teens listening to the episode that are in New Jersey and want to seek you out, is there a website they can find you on?
You could probably find me on Psychology Today. I can safely say I'm not accepting new clients at this time.
Okay.
Yeah, and I say that because I get very mushy and I want to take people on, especially a young person. And I have no time, especially in the after school hours. So
Gotcha.
I haven't been taking clients. I might be more so maybe in the summer, open up a little bit more to that because schedules can be more flexible. But right now, no, I'm not taking, but I am on Psychology Today.
Okay. Yeah, no worries. And I know that's a lot of therapists right now because the need is so high. So I'm glad that so many humans get to have you supporting them.
Thanks.
Thanks again for being here. And to everyone listening, make sure you turn on notifications and subscribe so you know when the next episode is coming out. Next time we are welcoming Dr. Amy Sapola. She's talking about pharmacy, like FARM, and the chef's garden that she's created. So we're really excited to talk about that. Thank you, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.